Howard Kurtz here in Washington with Michelle Cottle, and we're just talking about Rush Limbaugh. He, and what the media have inevitably labeled Slutgate, he has apologized. He's done it on his radio show. And yet, more advertisers are bailing out. The President of the United States is taking him on. Why won't people just let Rush say he's sorry for calling that woman a slut?
Well, in part because his apology was clearly half-hearted. You know, it was like, well, my word choice was bad. I mean, what word choice would have been better? Tart, tramp, whore? No, I'm sorry, that's not, and he didn't call the woman starting out. And so, on some level, everybody knows you've got to apologize and you've got to make it stick. And he didn't do that.
And of course, he waited 3 days to apologize, didn't do the apology until after advertisers started bailing out. So it looked like a little bit of damage control. But what is it, I mean, you know that some commentators, satirists, entertainers on the left, Bill Maher talking about Sarah Palin, Ed Schultz using the same S word talking about Laura Ingraham, they have tripped up. Schultz, for example, apologized. This was nothing of the magnitude of this story involving Rush Limbaugh. Why has this become, you know, the political obsession of the week?
Well, Rush is huge. Rush is seen as, you know, kind of the godfather of conservative talk radio. He has a huge listenership, even if it's, you know, sagged a little in recent years.
But then he says, well, I'm just an entertainer. I'm not the leader of the Republican Party.
Of course he says that, but he only says that when it's convenient. He says that to kind of get out of any kind of accountability in situations like this. But he also hangs out with the creme de la creme of the Republican establishment. So he can't have it both ways.
And it seems to me that that Rush Limbaugh has just given the Democrats a big, fat gift, because for months you had Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who I talked to the other day, running around saying Republicans are waging a war on women. And it sounded a little hyperbolic. And now you have, you know, in the wake of the whole Rick Santorum, let's talk about how I don't like birth control flap, you have Limbaugh putting this issue back. And I've talked to Republicans who say this is really hurting us because it's changing the subject to something where, you know, they don't really want to diss Rush because he is so influential, but they sure don't want to defend this.
Well, no. I mean, what you have here is kind of a weird branch of the culture wars. It's one thing to talk about, you know, abortion or even gay marriage, but when you just come across as a party that hates women and doesn't like sex and wants, you know, to kind of make a stink about things.
Rush likes sex. He keeps getting married.
Rush does like sex, but Rush likes sex on his own terms. And the fact that he keeps getting married still just kind of boggles the mind. But that's the difference.
So President Obama uses a news conference to take Limbaugh on. Of course, he called Sandra Fluke interjected himself into the drama that way. And then he brings up Sasha and Malia and says he's upset about this because he doesn't want them, when they get older, to be subject to that kind of verbal abuse. Smart political move?
Well, I do think that any time you can invoke your children, you run the risk of people saying you're exploiting the situation. But I think in this case, I think it's going to play pretty well. What Rush did was so egregious and just so kind of, it's not just that he called her names. He talked about putting sex videos online, which that's just going to raise so many red flags. And he made the mistake of going that one step too far. And once you do that, you can't dial it back.
The mistake that he made was not talking about feminazis in general, which he has done for 20 years, but in targeting a specific young woman who turns out is quite capable of going on the Today Show and The View and MSNBC and defending herself against the guy with a pretty mighty megaphone.
Exactly. He did not pick on some poor kind of clueless or even kind of made-up straw man. He picked on a specific, very articulate woman who can then go on TV and go, what? I mean...
Will this blow over in a week?
I don't think it'll blow over in a week, and a lot of it has to do, he's lost all these advertisers. I mean, money talks. He could be as big a pig as he wanted to be, as long as nobody got offended enough to pull their advertising. But until that ends...
Glad you don't have any strong opinions on this, but you aren't holding back here.
No. The man deserves to be smacked for this.
You heard it here first. Thanks, Michelle.